Hello everyone, I'm Silent Death, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, Science Harder Campaign. Done a little bit between episodes, mostly just cleaning up some missions, a temperature scan for a whole bunch of money, and a bit of science. One that I had last episode, but we didn't get to. And science data from space around the moon, and there's another temperature scan on the moon, which I must have clicked through. Today, we're going to look over here, start out with, it is time to start preparing to go to Duna. Towards that end, we have a few contracts here that we're going to want to pick up. Build a new surface outpost on Ike. Since we unlocked the docking port last time, we've been able to pick up various bases and surface outpost station contracts. I've already picked up one for around Kerbol. Not very much, but money is money. One for around the moon, which we'll get to in another episode, and also one around Mimbus, which we will also get to in another episode. This one is worth quite a bit too. We will pick up the one on Ike because seriously, 300k advanced, and then another 700k. Yes, please. We will go ahead and pick up this. Test the LVN atomic rocket motor. I just want the engine. I will test it at some point in the future, but not anytime soon because I'm going to keep that around for a little while. Then the 48S on an escape trajectory out of Kerbol. This is that little bitty probe engine that we have accidentally tested twice so far, but we're going to do it again. We'll probably end up accidentally testing it one more time, but this is just for probes and stuff until we actually research that technology. The Turtle Aerospike rocket. That one is pretty good for use in the atmosphere, and it might be useful in the surface of Duna for some reason. Just in case we need it, we'll go ahead and pick it up. We have the LFBKR dash 1x2. This is just worth a crap ton of money. For testing it just in orbit of Kerbol, total of about 600k. Lots of money. I'm going to go ahead and pick this up, and we'll keep this around just in case we need to lift something very, very heavy and we're out of other options. Though I'll try to avoid using that because that feels a little bit like cheating. Go ahead and pick up the Explorer Icon because we're going to be doing that anyway, maybe. Or I think maybe we'll just leave it until we start getting close to Ike so that we don't use up one of our slots. We have installed TAC life support. Being as we're going to be working on stations now, I thought that would be a good idea to add. So far we've only been around Kerbol, so I haven't felt the need for it. But now that we're going to be going further afield, I think it's a good idea. Let's check the research center and see if it has added any new technologies. Or anything. Okay, so there's a camera there. Lights. Here's a whole bunch of tech stuff. Bunch of life support modules. Some stuff over here. None of it is life support. What's that one? Nothing there. No. No, no. I have no idea where it would be. It does not look like we've gotten any more, I don't think. The shock cone intake. I did not know I had that unlocked. Maybe here would be something? A food bag, a waste tank, and a gray water tank. So there's something. Bit of SAS. And I think we may want... Well, these are both exactly the same, so that's not going to make a difference. Alright, so didn't add any technology as far as I can see. Nope, that wasn't there before. Okay, so it added that. One thing. Well, that's something. And it takes more than 500 science to get that. We're going to want that at some point in the near future. In the very near future, if we're going to be sending someone off. So we'll probably have to start saving up some money. Now then, we have to build something to get a space station into orbit. We, however, do not have any 2.5 meter engines or fuel tanks. And we do want to bring the research thing up with us. So this is going to be an interesting challenge, but that is what this whole series is about. If you're just going to slap a main cell and an orange tank to everything that you need to get to orbit, it's not very challenging. You need something to force you to be creative. And we have that. We have to be very creative. So let me see if I can figure something out, and I will be right back. Well, it's been 6 days since I recorded that last segment. Adding life support was significantly more challenging than I was expecting. We do have a few things to go over. First, that's pretty, but that's not what we're going to go over. I noticed when I went back and looked at this, we do have more text here. We have a whole life support line that branches out and then it connects to this. So we have to research all of these, which go up quite expensive until we can get to that. This will unlock 6 or 0.625 meter things. And tiny little cans. We don't really have much options for life support right now. Basically, we have 2 options, I think, something like that. Something we started with. What is this? Okay. It's a big old rock. Manufacture the solar system. Alright. That's a little bit strange. I don't know where that's from. What was I looking for? A thing. It's gotta be around here somewhere in man control, is it? Nope. Nope. You would think you'd be in one of the earlier texts. You would, however, be wrong. Okay, there it is. So, this is all the life support we have. Is that not the exact same thing as over here? 6.5 food, water, and a thingamaduper? Life support container. So these are just the multiple containers. Those are specific containers. So that's the difference. But anyway, this is all the life support we have. Nothing more. We've had to stretch things a little bit on that front. Also, I'm bringing in the people we had on the moon and on Minmus due to them not having any life support or just having what was in their pod. So the moon hopper's almost back. The guy from Minmus, I'm basically going to have to continually edit the save file every time he gets low on life support until he gets back. But I'm not going to do that on camera. Now then, for the station we have designed. This is the station in 2 sections. This one contains pretty much all the fuel. So that's all fuel. That's all fuel. It's got the science module thingamaduper, some monoprop on both of them, as well as the Mark II SAS reaction wheels. Crew compartments. Each one has a crew compartment with a little bit of life support built in, and some more fuel here. This one is all of our life support. We have food. We have water and more water. Then fuel. I think that's supposed to be oxygen. Pretty sure that's supposed to be oxygen, in fact. That must have messed up when I reloaded it, because it's obviously negative amount of space or something like that, or at least it said it had a negative amount there for a moment. But yeah, oxygen is all through there. It gives us, once everything is right, enough for about 2,000 days with 3 people. That's enough for us to miss one launch window, and if we miss the second one, it can return back. It has about 5,000 Delta V when fully fueled. It is, however, very, very heavy at 75 metric tons. So we're going to be launching them in halves, and probably, well, we'll get to that in a moment. We will be calling this station the Dynamic Duno, because that's a kind of an awesome name. Now then, to go with the station, we have some landers. This is the Bat lander. It has 2,500 Delta V. It's also basically a return vessel for 2 carbons. It has enough life support for, I think, yeah, the return trip, which is like 220 something days, so that and a healthy margin. All kinds of science crammed in here. Enough science to collect everything we can collect from 2 whole biomes, and then return to orbit. Close those. And you may be wondering why it's called the Bat. Well, that pretty much is it right there. Looks like a bat to me. Now then, let's see them connected up to the station. We're going to bring 2 of these. These are pretty expensive, 121k each. More than the whole station, just one of these. I guess all that science is pretty expensive, and also it's pretty heavy. 27 tons, quite heavy. This is roughly how it will look when it gets in orbit. Final mass of 153 metric tons. Just over 5,000 Delta V with a 0.29 thrust to weight based on carbon, 0.29 Gs of thrust, and a final cost of not a number of $338,000. Significant amount of money there. But I think this will be good for getting to Duna and getting back. Probably. We may have to send some more stuff. I'm not entirely happy with how the landers turned out. So I'm thinking I'll probably replace them with something once we unlock more tech. I would really like to have an electric lander, a ion-powered lander for Duna. Those are so much more efficient than these big giant things. And I think we may end up doing that once we get all the material science and stuff. The material science and goo, all the heavy stuff taken care of. We can send something else there to do the gravioli experiments. These don't have room. The landers don't have room for 2 science things, so that means they can't take 2 surface samples. Unless somebody has to ride the back on the way back up, which is something we may do, but we also might just send someone down with the gravioli experiments later. Now then, the hard part was figuring out how to get these things into orbit. The first attempt was a ginormous space plane. It has more than a few intakes and engines. Enough thrust to get to there and the proper aerodynamic profile to get in orbit. However, with 263 parts, it basically turns into a slideshow once all the heating and aerodynamic effects kick in the upper atmosphere, and is basically unflyable for that reason. So it's also extremely expensive. So it was a nice attempt, but it did not end up working. Afterwards, I realized that maybe I was just overthinking this a little bit. This already has a whole bunch of fuel in it, and is basically space-worthy. It just needs a little bit more thrust to get into space. Thus, we gave it more thrust, and this is in fact something that can get it to space. Couple of solid rocket boosters for the just initial push. Here we have some of the LVT-30 engines for the extra thrust to weight over the LVT-45. Don't really need the vectoring too much because this has a ton of SAS. We're using some kind of shenanigans with fuel lines and the good speed fuel pumps. Basically, we're using good speed to pump the fuel out, but we have a fuel line connected back into this so that the engine will still have access to fuel even though all this fuel is going to be pumped out first. That way we maintain our thrust to weight throughout the whole flight, but once we are high enough that we can ditch the extra thrust, all the fuel will be where we want it inside of here. And the other one is similar, it just needs more fuel tanks because it doesn't have as much fuel on it. It's also a little bit lighter though. Now then, the bats were quite a bit more difficult to get figured out. My first thought were, hey, these are already space planes designed for flying in thin atmospheres. We'll just slap some jets and rockets on, and it'll be able to get to space no problem. So, 4 jets back here, a couple more over here, some fuel, and some aerospikes down there with more fuel. Unfortunately, that just completely screws up the center of mass and everything with the fuel being pumped around and stuff, and is just not good at high speeds. This thing is designed for Duna, where it has a orbital velocity of about 900 meters per second and a much thinner atmosphere as you get higher. So at about 1200 meters per second and 20k or 35k in Kerbin's atmosphere, it is completely just goes nuts. It's not stable at those speeds and that altitude. I could change it, but I did not really want to fool with it. I decided, hey, we'll just strap a big giant rocket and launch both of them at the same time. Cue one big giant rocket. This is what I came up with to try to get them both into orbit. Lots of fuel here, a whole bunch of fuel there, some asparagus staging down here. However, Thor does some kind of weird thing with the lift ratio thing when it's flying up like this. It keeps wanting to pull to the side even though the lift surfaces should balance each other out, or maybe it's just SAS is getting confused with both of them together. Basically, I can't keep it straight past more than about 100 meters per second. So that idea did not work either. Thus, I scaled back things a bit, using a single bat lander with a bunch of rockets strapped to it. Of course, you can never have too many boosters, so we snapped a couple of extra solid rocket boosters on there too. And then some extra stabilizers to help kind of counteract the forces from these wings, so that we could fly straight up with the rockets. That way would not be going quite so fast, so that we shouldn't have any stability issues. And this actually works. It does require a lot of fuel balancing things that apparently keep getting unsaved, because those should all have their pop settings set. But yeah, these have to be set up to be auto balanced. Apparently some of them remember that they're supposed to be auto balanced, but not everybody. Auto pumped, auto balanced, and then these are doing weird things too, but all that has to happen. And this will be how we're getting the bat landers up. The bat landers do have a probe core so they can be flown remotely, but the station components don't have a probe core. Actually, I think that I ended up putting a probe core on them, but I'm probably going to launch everything with at least one crew member. Then we'll need to launch a refueler, and we can send back someone on the refueler or something like that. Or maybe just have someone jump out and hang out in orbit while this guy flies off to Duna. I don't know. It has been a number of days working on this, so we're probably not going to get to everything today, but we'll start with launching the first piece of the station. Nielstead will be our pilot today. We're basically just going down this list and picking a pilot, a scientist, and an engineer to go. We can only have life support for 3 people, so those are the obvious choices if we can only have 3. And he's been waiting the longest, so it's time for him to go back into space. And he is going to do that today. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off. Doesn't exactly zoom off the lift pad, but it gets there. 1.22, not terrible. Given how much mass and everything, or how much space all the life support stuff is taking, I'm thinking about installing the modular colonization systems mod. That would mean I would have to launch something heavier to get there, but then once it gets there, they could produce their own food and be somewhat self-sufficient. They wouldn't have to be resupplied every single time. And I might save a little bit over long term of doing things that way. I checked, and it is supported by the tech tree mod that I'm using. And being that I'm using B9's procedural wings and parts for all that kind of stuff, I can delete most of the B9 aerospace pack wings and probably free up enough memory for that. That's kind of what I'm planning on doing unless someone strongly objects. But back to the flight. Now we will be launching one of our bats up to join the first part of our station, mostly because the bats have some life support that can be hooked up, and we've already used up our launch for our launch pad at this window, so we need to launch it from the runway. Unfortunately, craft is too large for the runway. So, what's going on? I guess that means that we're going to have to upgrade the runway. I can do that now. Nice big giant runway. And let's launch our bat. Our first bat here. This is our engineer flying. Gosfrey. I have no idea how to pronounce her name. Gosfrey, Geosfy. One of those is probably not right. This guy here, he is an engineer, and he is going to fly this. That is what is happening. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off. It's trying to tilt a little bit. And there goes all of our solar panels. It's a good thing we have the extra ones. He's a little bit afraid. I don't understand why. He's just got, you know, a few tons of explosives strapped to him. Ooh, don't do it. There we go. Meanwhile, between the last launch and this launch, our guy from the moon has returned. And he brought 69 science with him. I think we're going to save up for the gravioli detector before we do anything else, which means we're going to need a lot more money. But that'll be after we launch our mission to Duna. So right now we're just kind of stockpiling the science. And this is a little bit hard to fly. So I'm going to fast forward a bit. Geosphy is now in orbit. I think we're just going to call him G from now on. G is now in orbit. Got himself facing into the sun. He also has enough Delta V to go straight to Duna if he wanted to. He could actually make it, though he wouldn't be able to survive long enough to get back. But he could make it there and go ahead and get started on the science if he wanted to jump the gun a little bit. Our other craft is right here. We're going to set that as a target just to see if we have any kind of intercept in the near future. Distance. Yeah, nothing. We actually seem to be going further apart every orbit. So we'll worry about fiddling with that in the future. I guess we could set it up so that we get a good orbit. Somewhere around in here. That's pretty close. If we bump that out to, what is it, 102? He's behind us, so yeah, we would need a slightly larger orbit than him. We could do that. A little bit lower there. A little bit higher over there. Tiny bit of inclination too. Do we want to take care of that first? We've already passed that, so I guess not. Alright. So just snap to the periapses. That's the apple, that's the wrong thing. Snap to the apoapsis. And then set this to 102. That's about right. That puts us... Let's see, separation 200 and something. We'll make it slightly larger, and that way we should start catching up with him while we're launching the other craft, and then we can come back and fine-tune it a little bit. Now then, our next launch window, it's in just over a day. I think we'll be launching the other half of the station, the dynamic Duno, and then try to dock that with this, and then go ahead and get the other bat up, and probably in the episode after that. So let's move on to that. Here we have Jinlong, our ever-important scientist that is going to Duna. In the second half of the station, we're using arrow spikes that we picked up from the experimental part contract. We need to launch this pretty quickly because the bat lifter has a rendezvous with the other part in 42 minutes, which is why we're launching in the night and not waiting until morning. Launch window is just happened. We're an hour past. Everyone had to work through the night to get this done. I'm a little bit concerned that these engines are going to overheat and explode, but I guess it's going to be a learning experience. Certainly for Jean. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off. Okay, they seem to be... Nope, they're overheating. Hopefully they'll stabilize a little bit. 3, 4. I'm not sure I'm going to have enough thrust now. Going to drop these down to 80-ish. That works. And hope that's going to be enough thrust. Still overheating pretty rapidly. Very, very rapidly. Don't usually use these, and I think I'm realizing why. Yeah, that's not good enough. That's not going to be enough thrust. Try dropping them down to like 77 then? And see if that's enough. Nope, okay. I mean, we could try doing it until they burn enough fuel to stabilize. But I don't think that's a good idea. I think we'll just switch to a different engine. Maybe. I don't know, they seem to be doing okay now. They're starting to pick up. Alright, we'll just leave it like this. And we can fast forward a little bit now. Now we have G here again in the bat. Coming in for his docking maneuver. It's going to be another 4 hours before the second part of the station gets here. I kind of want to dock the second part first so that I don't have to worry about these colliding with each other. But apparently that's not going to be a thing. So make do with what we have. Close the alarm. A little bit of torque on this because the center of mass is not well in the center. Which is good when you're flying and trying to pull the nose up. Not so great when you're trying to do docking maneuvers. And let's just warp through this a little bit. While we wait on the dynamic Duno to become a duo. We have another craft to launch. We're going to try this one without any Kerbals in it, and hopefully I have everything set up correctly, or this is going to be an expensive test. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lift off. Real test is going to come around 3,000 meters, as that's when we would be out of range of whatever transmitters are built in here, and they're built into our probe core. Let's get rid of that. Tilt us over a little bit. You just hang on there. And then it should flip back over like that. And we are off. So 1300, 1600, 1700, 18, 19, 20. Pretty good thrust to weight. 23, 24, 5. There goes the solar panels again. I don't even know why I put them on here. And we're above 3K. And everything is working. I'm not going to show another launch of these. We'll just skip ahead straight to the docking. Since this is our primary drive section, or the other half of our primary drive section, it's rather important that we have them properly aligned with each other. To do that, we have to line up the rotation marker at the top. That's the little kind of arch with a line and a circle on top, and the number that's next to the R up there in the top corner. We need to get that to be the same, or get that to be within 1 degree, because our engines have a gimbling of 1 degree, so we can get that close and be good enough, I think, I hope. And that does appear to be exactly what we get. Then we have to do the same thing with the bat, or the last bat. The first bat, I did not correctly align the truss section so that I could not use the rotation indicator to get it straight. I'll have to go back and fix that at a later date before we launch to Duna. But this one I'm able to do so correctly, and we get everything nice and docked in there. The dynamic Duno and the bats are all up in orbit. They just need some fuel, and they will be ready to go to Duna. But that'll have to wait until next episode. Like if you like, subscribe if you're not. Leave a comment if you have anything to say. I do read all the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.